My name is Jason.
My name is Judd.
And this is The Sixth Ring, a discussion about the trophy tabletop role-playing game.
And our theme today is loss.
Setting out.
So, Judd, keeping with our theme of loss, something that many of us have lost recently is the ability to play tabletop role-playing games face-to-face, whether that be at home or at conventions, because of the pandemic. I myself had recently started playing face-to-face games again, having not done it for a while, right before the pandemic, like in January, February. And so I got a taste of what I remember liking about playing face-to-face, and then had to ditch it entirely. So
yeah,
I wanted to talk about that, but really, truly, I just want to talk about the alternative, like online play, which is what a lot of folks are doing right now. I suspect that you and I have had pretty different experiences with online play.
Yeah.
And so I thought that might be kind of fun to talk about for a bit.
Sounds good.
And I do have a trophy point too, by the way. Did you mostly do face-to-face gaming before the pandemic?
No, I had a couple of face-to-face games that were going on. But I think most of my gaming for a while, at least since I lived in New York City, has been online. Space was so difficult and travel was so difficult in New York City that very often I would just do it online. Just felt it was easier.
Oh, okay, interesting. I was under the impression that you did more face-to-face gaming. Okay.
Nope. Mostly online now. But yeah, there was the bi-weekly face-to-face game that has kind of just fallen apart now. So it's funny you should be asking me this, because I just had my first socially distanced dinner in a friend's backyard. And we had 2 tables 10 feet apart. It was just strange, it's strange that it is strange to see people, and to see their faces. Putting this, the loss of face-to-face play in the theme of loss is very apt. I thought it was good thematic work. So absolutely. You've been doing mostly online play for a bunch. How was it going back to face-to-face when you did it for a little bit?
I probably had not played face-to-face gaming regularly for probably, 4 years or so. Having done most of my game playing on the Gauntlet, on Gauntlet Hangouts and just online in general. And so it was nice to be back in that space. The thing is, I'm not one of those people who considers online role-playing games to be a compromise. I come out of a very strong play culture as far as online gaming goes. In the Gauntlet, we've developed a really, really good online play culture. And so to me, it's a great way of gaming. But that said, there are a few things that you do miss in online gaming, and I was reminded of that when I got to do some face-to-face gaming. For example, there is a very particular energy, I think, that you have in person that you don't really get online.
Yeah.
Like a table energy, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can't read people's visual cues as well online. That's much easier to do face-to-face.
Definitely.
The tactility of the experience is missing. And of course, you have just the sort of tech requirements that you sometimes have to wrestle with. I mean, those are all things that make face-to-face gaming a little better in some ways than online gaming. But I don't consider online gaming a compromise by any means. They're just different to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's worse. I mean, it's just different. I think it's a very different thing with different expectations. It's been interesting hearing people make that transition in mass, there were so many podcasts with hey, these are our online tips. And it was just fascinating to hear everybody making that switch all at once.
Yeah, it really was. And maybe we should add our contribution to the online play tips genre, the online play tips podcast genre, as I do have some.
Sounds good.
Well, first of all, I think before we get into tips, I do think it's worth talking about some advantages of online play. Listener, if you are out there and you are sad because you are not able to play with your regular group, there are some advantages to doing online gaming, and I do think you should be aware of those, because I think some people don't know these things. First of all, it's actually much easier and frequently cheaper to get involved in a game at all, because you can do it in your pajamas from home, so long as you have an internet connection.
Yeah.
There is one aspect that is very popular in the Gauntlet, the way we play. So in the Gauntlet, we create these Google Sheets that have everyone's character information on them. And that's kind of a game changer way of playing, because basically everyone can see every character at all times. So you can see all their conditions, all their abilities, all their different little notes. Like, you're just aware of every character, and it actually really changes the gameplay. And I miss that whenever I am at, say, at a convention and I don't have that sort of access to everyone's character information.
Yeah.
So that's one nice thing about playing online that you just can't do face-to-face.
No, I was going to say that cutting out the travel time is huge. It's just a huge factor. I mean, in upstate, it's not as huge. But in New York City, it felt like it was an hour to everywhere, unless I was playing at my neighbor's house. Being able to just turn on the screen and go is a huge boon. Absolutely. Thumbs up for that for online play.
I also think that once you really get into online play, you can do some fun things with the technology. Like when I'm running a game, especially at night, I like to do like stuff with the lighting in my room and the way I kind of play with the camera.
Nice.
I kind of incorporate that into my GMing. I sometimes will play music on the breaks, like if we're able to like share a music track. You can do picture boards where everybody can kind of like post up pictures of different characters and things, and those are some kind of fun things you can do when you're playing online. But yeah, so it's just a different kind of experience, I think, is what we're kind of getting at here.
Mm-hmm.
So tips. What are your best tips for playing online?
So I'm going to steal one from our Ace production guy, Rich Rogers, who said one that I'm going to repeat. He said it other places, and I think it's just worth repeating. I've actually repeated this to people at work who are doing Zoom for the first time at work. And that is, if you are asking a question and you want someone to talk, don't ask the group.
Right.
Because then they'll just talk over each other, and then you'll lose like 10 minutes to the oh sorry, whoop, there's like a cha-cha, like you talk, no you, no you.
Right.
And it's just really frustrating. And I saw a colleague starting to do it in a job Zoom, in a professional Zoom, and I said, don't say, hey guys, and then just leave it open. You've got to call somebody out. You've got to say, like, Rich, why don't you start? And then don't just leave it up to the group, because as soon as two people start talking over each other, it becomes a nightmare.
Well, and that actually helps you develop what I think is a really important GM skill that you can apply to face-to-face or online gaming, which is spotlight management.
Yeah.
To me, spotlight management is always better when you're calling on individuals. No matter the context of the game, like how we're playing, it's never great when you as the GM just say, so what do you all do?
Right.
Frequently no one says anything.
Yeah.
It's so much more helpful when you single someone out and maybe even kind of prod them with a leading question a little bit to kind of get them going. So, but you're right. In the online context, directing the conversation is a big part of your job as the facilitator, for sure.
As a player, I've noticed people are getting pretty good about like putting their hand up in the camera, like not in the camera, but like putting it up in view so that someone else can see it, like, hey, I've got something to say. Another boon of online play is we're probably better about not interrupting each other in online play than at tables. Because I notice especially certain types of tables where there's a hierarchical problem, people will just get bowled over.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. I have heard different people say different things about that. Like our mutual friend Rob Bull, for example, always says he can't get into online play because he wants to just jump in there, you know, and he's not good at managing the, the space. But I do think that for the most part, you're right. It's not easy to like do a cacophony of table talk online.
Yeah.
And this is especially the case if you're following my number one tip, which is practice mic discipline. Get everyone in the habit of muting when they're not speaking. This just improves the flow and the quality of the game so much. This is especially the case if you're recording the game to put up on YouTube or whatever. You really need to have everyone practicing mic discipline, or it's not going to be as great an experience to watch back. That's my number one tip, I think, is just mic discipline.
Yeah. Especially if someone has a weird noise on their thing, and just muting it and being very aware of who's talking and when is just a big deal. Absolutely agreed. In online play's defense, I think Rob just doesn't like online play. I mean, he just doesn't like it.
Right, yeah,
so it's not just any one thing. It's a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And that's all right. It doesn't have to be for everybody.
Absolutely, yeah.
What else? So is there something that when you see other people play online, you are like, oh man, amateur mistake? That's like, is there a big mistake that you see often?
Well, I don't know if I would say like amateur mistake. I think the mic discipline thing is probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
But there are a couple of other things that are just good habits, I think. One is, I think you have to be very big on screen. Like if you're happy, you need to smile vigorously and nod vigorously, right? Because I mentioned earlier that one of the trade-offs is you can't really quite read people's cues as easily online as you can in person. So you have to kind of play to the camera. You have to be kind of big with your reactions, a little bit exaggerated, so that everyone hones in on what you're feeling. And this is a major Gauntlet play culture thing. Most people who play with the Gauntlet for a while, we all do this. Like if you watch us, like if you watch our videos, you see everyone like, listener, you can't see me right now, but I'm making big eyes and hands.
Right.
And, like, because it's a way of like showing how you're actually feeling about something, but also it's a way of sort of cheerleading for the group too, because you don't have that energy of being in face-to-face. You don't have those sort of natural cues that we have as people around other people. And so you sort of can reward people for how good they're doing by being very big on screen so they understand that they did good.
Yeah. I would take that even a little bit further. There's something that Strash and Lauren and I do when we play together, and that's we'll just straight up like make the heart in the camera, like the little heart with your hands thing. Like I know that's really corny, but like it's like just a nice way to let your colleagues know that you're feeling something, like you're feeling the feels, and what they're doing is awesome. Just figure out what that is. Like I remember there used to be a thing in indie RPG con scenes where we would all kind of like wiggle our fingers at each other.
Oh, that's a LARP thing, right?
Yeah. Even at the table. But now the heart is the big one.
Oh,
My goodness, this is so heart-wrenching. So yeah, some way to let people know that you're feeling stuff, or even just like waiting till things are over and just being like, that was awesome.
I'm told the chat is good for that too.
Oh, nice.
The text chat.
Okay.
I don't use the text chat when I game online because I'm usually the GM or the facilitator, and I can't focus on it.
Yeah.
I'm so like locked into GMing that I cannot focus on this like side conversation.
Yep.
But I know it happens because I glance and I see the players like having a whole thing, conversation on the side with each other. That's another handy tool and another advantage of online play, actually. This is especially the case, by the way, if you are playing a game in the modern day where the characters have cell phones. You can use the chat as a way of communicating that. I've played Monster Hearts online, and players have fired off moves via text message in the chat.
Oh, that's really clever.
Yeah, so that's another fun thing to do. Oh, you asked about like rookie mistakes or whatever. Here's one. Not having a fallback plan.
Yep.
If I'm the GM, I'm going to explain to everyone, okay, if I go out, if my connection drops and you don't hear from me for 10 minutes, we're done. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Same thing. If you drop out as a player and we don't hear back from you, like either on chat or Discord or something, then we're just going to assume you're not coming back. Like, we're not going to suspend the game for an hour while we figure out what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it as well.
And having a game that's flexible in its structure. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went with Trophy Gold for our Thursday night game when a bunch of local folks and friends decided to start a Thursday night game when the pandemic started. But it was one of the reasons why I wanted that is because I was, I really was going to try to get an incursion done every game, which I don't do, but I try. And I wanted that flexibility where if people come, if people go, whatever, we're going with, as long as we have a GM and 2 players, we're going to go that night.
Right, yeah.
The other thing that we used to do is have a backup game. If there was one bit where I was playing with my buddy Sean and we were noticing that a couple times it was just he and I for our Blades in the Dark game, and we're not going to play with just a GM and a player for that. So we got a backup game. We said, you know what? If no one else can make it, then we'll play this. Yeah, having a plan B because of the technical issues are just rampant. Having
a fallback plan is handy both for the technology, both for some people drop out, if whatever. Like, that's just a good practice in general, know? I mean, I think that's what makes a rockstar facilitator. Not like, it's not necessarily your ability to sell the scene, it's your ability to manage the expectations and deliver a good experience, or at least help deliver a good experience. Okay, so I have some trophy stuff here, which is what I actually truly want to talk about. But do you have any other tips for online play?
I mean, I think there are a lot of cool digital widgets and toys and Roll20 and all that. We could fill 10 shows with it. So I guess what I really want to say is don't get blinded by that and don't be afraid to just have a notebook next to you and take notes.
Yeah.
I find playing and dealing with all that and facilitating and then writing down notes is impossible, but I will write a name down and write a couple of words down in the notebook next to me. So like, don't feel like a pen and paper are something you're too far along to use.
Right.
It's totally cool.
Let the players roll dice. If they have dice handy, just let them roll dice. Like, if they can't figure out your die roller, just say, oh, we'll just grab some D6s and roll them. It's no big deal.
Yep. What are the trophy toys that are online?
Yeah, so we have 2 awesome new tools for folks who want to play Trophy online. The first is we have commissioned an online character keeper for Trophy Gold. Now, we had one before that we'd been using for a long time, and it was by Evan Buchholz, and it was fine, but Trophy Gold's changed a lot since that one came out, and we just wanted to have something that kind of reflected a little bit better where the game was today. And so we have this new shiny online character keeper. It's a Google Sheet, but it's very, very well structured and beautifully detailed and easy to use. It was made by Darren Brockus. We will have a link to that in the show notes. If you want to play Trophy Gold online, this is an amazing tool for doing that. And then the other thing we have is a little Discord app thing, a trophy die roller. So this was created by our friend Mags Maynad, and what it is you can type in /ruin or /weak or /combat or whatever you're doing, and then whatever number of dice you need, and it will roll some dice. And the dice are all the custom trophy dice. So the 1 through 3 have hollow pips.
Nice.
The 4 and 5 are solid pips, and the 6 is the antlers. And then we have light and dark versions of that. And then we have the gold dice that are all blank except for the one side. It's a really, really neat little tool. And also, like when you roll the dice, it tells you in text what the result in the game is. So if you're rolling a hunt roll, it'll say you lose your tokens and you encounter something terrible, or you gain a token but you encounter something terrible. Like, it tells you that. So just a couple of things that we're going to have links to in the show notes. You can take that Discord die roller and put it in your personal Discord.
Nice.
Why don't we move to the next segment?
Clawing for gold.
So we are talking about Area 01, which is a Trophy Gold incursion written by Michael Elliott. This is a near-future Trophy Gold incursion about a group of people who are exploring this town of Hope, British Columbia. This town has been turned into an exclusion zone by the UN, and that happened because some sort of alien or paranormal phenomenon occurred near the town, and so weird things have been happening, and so they've just walled off this town, and you are people who are going in there to explore it and to find out intel and figure out what's going on. It is 100% inspired by the Southern Reach trilogy. My touchstone there is the film Annihilation. It was a contest entry for the Trophy Gold contest. It was a very good one. We liked it a lot. It didn't place or win, but it was way up there. Jesse and I both had it as a finalist. So it's Annihilation, the Trophy Gold incursion. And it wears it on its sleeve. Yeah, like it's
absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I like the timeline for the players to give to them for like, hey, this is the background, which is cool. A cool way to like introduce people to the setting.
Yeah.
I feel like a question I would definitely be asking the characters is, where was your character when they heard the news that aliens had? And I think that's something that we have to decide as a group, is like, or maybe the GM could decide, maybe. But like, is this? It seems like it's public knowledge. Like, it seems like the world kind of knows.
Yeah, I think that's for the GM to decide.
Right.
In the movie Annihilation, the world didn't know. So I think you could probably play it either way. But yeah, your question, like, where was your character when they first heard about Area 01? That's a great way of kicking things off for sure.
Yeah, or how did they hear about it?
Right. I like this a lot. It's a great, great incursion. I think the layout is really great. It sells the setting because it has this kind of military typeface, which is really great. The cover image by Colin Space Twinks is really, really good. It's very evocative, and it kind of feels like you're on the bridge to Hope, you know. Like you said, the introduction is awesome. That timeline introduction is such a neat way of presenting the incursion. You know, normally you get like some prose or maybe a poem if it's a fantasy one. But this little timeline thing, this sort of like military timeline, is a great way of setting the stakes for the table and kind of establishing the setting, right?
Yeah.
Super cool stuff. Other things that you liked about it? I've got a bunch.
On first read, I did not like it.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, shit. I'm going to go online and I'm going to say that I don't like something in public, and I'm going to feel like a total asshole.
Well, it's okay.
But I'll tell you what turned me around is reading the theories a little more carefully. And I feel like that's where you figure out what's really going on as a GM. Because that's the tone of what breaks reality, right? And I feel like that's where your clues are going to be. And then that's where you're going to take cues for what's going on in Area 01.
You mean like at one point in the incursion, Michael says like, these are the possible things that could be happening
right
in the town of Hope. Is that what you mean there?
Well, I mean, it's can I spoil? I mean, I don't know.
Sure, why not? This will be spoilers.
Okay,
podcast,
so
yeah.
spoilers, folks. Spoilers. If you don't want to know what's happening, cover your eyes. There are certain choices, right? You can make it up on your own. And I feel like I hated that. And then when I looked at the rituals, I was like, oh, that's how I would figure out what was actually happening. Like, I wouldn't make some kind of decision and then impose it. I would look at the theories that the players had either chosen or I would probably ask them to choose it or roll.
Oh, when you say
roll.
theories, you mean the rituals. Sorry, I totally misunderstood. Yeah. Oh, I misunderstood. So listeners, listeners, to be clear, just because I kind of whiffed that earlier.
Okay.
In this incursion, the rituals are called theories. That's what Judd's talking about.
Yes.
Sorry, I was totally confused.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought I'd said that, but I might have just whipped by it because I talked too fast because I was born in New Jersey. I apologize.
This conversation makes way more sense now, though. So
Yeah. So the characters' rituals have very different tones. I think I would decide what was going on, what the vibe of the alien was, what was going on here by looking at the theories and slash rituals that the players had rolled or chosen. And then be like, okay, it's aliens, or it's people coming back in time and messing up our reality, or it's a cult, or whatever it ends up being. I think I would take that cue from the rituals _
theories.
What are you thinking, Jason?
Well, yeah, so that makes a lot more sense. And I see what you're saying because I'm looking at the list right now and we have, okay, one of the theories is exorcism.
Right.
Well, that implies like some kind of magical spirit or some kind of demonic thing.
Right.
Or there's quantum states, which allows you to briefly move through a physical object. That implies something more alien and more science-based. I see what you're saying there. Space-time distortion. That's clearly some kind of like time travel thing. Like, I see what you're saying. Like, whichever theories they chose, like thematically and tonally matching it up with the ultimate outcome in the final set of the incursion. I see what you're saying. And so what you're saying is this improved your overall experience with the incursion because prior to that it felt unmoored, I guess.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, there's no decision being made, and then I was like, oh, you've given me all the tools I need to make a decision. I hadn't felt that until I read his take on the rituals.
Got it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. I had a very positive feeling for this immediately. I was really looking at it. Well, one, I was looking at it as a fan of the movie Annihilation, which I love, and then on the other hand, I was also looking at it just from a pure incursion structure standpoint, and I think this is a really, really solid structure. Mm-hmm. A quick diversion. Jesse and I, Jesse Ross, the author of Trophy, whenever we talk about our Appendix N for Trophy, we always mention Annihilation. But we talk about Annihilation in the context of Trophy Dark, because Annihilation, the film at least, I can't speak to the book, but the film is a 5-ring Trophy Dark incursion structure. Like every part of the movie matches up perfectly with the 5-ring structure. And that's because the 5-ring structure is a storytelling structure.
Right.
But it matches up so perfectly. And we always talk about Annihilation in the context of Trophy Dark. So it was really interesting to me to see this incursion, which I first experienced at the contest, for Trophy Gold. Because Trophy Gold, my initial thinking was, I'm so accustomed to thinking about Annihilation as a Trophy Dark thing. How will it work in Trophy Gold? And I think it actually works really, really well. I mean, it's not linear like Trophy Dark. You can go back and forth and stuff. The big ticket sort of like narrative moments are still there. The big sort of finale set is still there. Like that big kind of crazy mind-bending ending. You want that. And this also adds a few interesting things. It's not just a straight aping of Annihilation. The Cult, for example. I don't know about the Southern Reach trilogy, but the movie Annihilation does not have a cult aspect, which this has like a cult compound, and I thought that was a great touch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I like about this, and you mentioned the theories. I think that's a great way of recharacterizing the rituals. I think that overall, the custom character creation options are really great here. You can have characters with fun stuff like glow sticks and empty test tubes and deer musk and stuff like that, right? You can have occupations like astrophysicist and soldier, or backgrounds like defrocked priest or escaped cultist, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I like all that stuff. And like one last thing I really like about this incursion has to do with the contest. So I judged this for the contest, and I felt when I judged it that the moments were a little weak. I talked to Michael about that, and that was the main thing that kept it out of contention for winning. But it seems like he's punched them up quite a bit for this itch.io release.
Nice.
They feel punchier. I didn't have time to compare it to the original, so I'm actually not 100% sure, but reading it, they felt punchier. Maybe hopefully I'm not lying right now about that, but they definitely felt like stronger to me. So that was the only thing I thought was kind of like a very minor weakness of the contest entry, and in its current state, it's a really, really solid incursion.
And I think it's ripe for playing a dark game and then playing a gold. I mean, the vibe, the whole thing of the game is that you're going in after a group that went in and was lost.
Right,
so
yeah.
It would be super easy to play that first group and then tell the group, like just being up front and saying, we're going to play a dark game and you're going to lose everybody, and then we're going to play the gold game of the people who are going in after them.
That's a great idea.
I think that would be really interesting, and it would probably make your monsters for you for the next one, right? Like you probably get them, especially if you told your players, hey, if you want to be a monster in the next game, play into that and lean in.
Hit 6 ruin, play to lose. Right. I wonder if Michael would be interested in maybe writing like a little short 5-ring version of this, but honestly, may not even need to. I think it would probably work as is.
Yeah, almost definitely.
Pretty cool incursion. I'm really fond of it. Any other thoughts about Area 01?
Yeah, I'm curious if it's a gold vibe. Like, I would be curious what other bases are out there and what.
Yeah,
I would definitely probably want one on an oil rig. I don't know why, but just because
that's pretty
alien
cool.
incursion on oil rig seems like fun. Yeah, I would just be interested to see what people did for the follow up. I think that'd be really kind of cool.
I'll mention another thing I liked about this that I didn't put in my notes, but you just reminded me of it, is Michael changed the idea of gold in the game to be intel instead of like treasure. And instead of going back to town, you go back to this UN base. So that's why I say like structurally it's super solid, because he thought about every part of like Trophy Gold's game and made it work in this context. And so I think it's a very successful incursion.
I would want to play every single one as dark first and then gold, and I think it would make
it'd be fun
going in much less frustrating. You still know that there's a monster in the mailbox when you open it, but it's just less. I think it would take a lot of frustration out to play the doomed people who got doomed in the first game and then go in for the people going in after them.
I see what you're saying there, and actually it makes a lot of sense, because Trophy Dark is much more collaborative than Trophy Gold is.
Yeah.
They're both quite collaborative, but Trophy Dark is much more so because there's only a risk roll in Trophy Dark. Every die roll practically is creating new fiction, and so you have this space to sort of fill in the details in Trophy Dark. And like you said, then you could take that and you have this sort of like loaded, ready to go Trophy Gold version. That could be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that a lot. Let's go to the next segment.
Into the forest dark.
Playing to lose. Keeping with our theme of loss. What does playing to lose mean to you, Jed?
Well, it's interesting because Gold has both. Gold says play to win, and then the next sentence it says
and
play to lose.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
You're going to do both. I think it means being comfortable. Like, you don't know where the character's story is going to go. You don't know if you're the great hero or if that 50 gold goal is really going to be yours. I feel like in Dark it's even more. It's like, I don't even know if this is a good guy or not. And it's probably a bad guy.
Right.
And I don't know if there's redemption in them. So I think it means leaning into that and being comfortable finding out things about your character that might not be comfortable. Whether that is they're too weak to make it through this dungeon, or that the monster is them, or that they really are they're worse than the monster and they're going to take over for it.
Right, yeah.
I think Playing to Lose is like an offshoot of Play to Find Out and Keep the Story Feral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so to me, perhaps unintuitively, Play to lose means you actually play to win and play to lose.
Okay.
It's like you said, it's codified in Trophy Gold. But even in Trophy Dark, I think it means both. Because to me, it means, you play to win initially. You do everything you can to keep your character alive, to see them thrive. You play to the best of your ability. But then when the time comes for them to fall, you lean into it. In Trophy Dark, that fall comes much quicker, necessarily so. The play to lose aspect seems much more prominent. But in fact, I think they're both kind of play to win and play to lose, because I think that they are two necessary parts of the experience.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned keeping it feral and playing to find out, because I thought it'd be fun to talk about the origin of this style of play, because it really is a style of play. I mean, I was thinking about this, and I think Apocalypse World and its kin is the origin of this type of play.
Okay.
I don't ever remember playing to lose in D&D.
I think...
Am I not going back far enough? I don't know.
No, I don't think we did. I think...
Tell me, Forge.
No. I don't think... I'm not thinking about the Forge. I'm thinking about my own experiences as a 12-year-old growing up in New Jersey playing D&D.
Yeah.
You would definitely give props to crazy stupid death or something that was just, wow, I can't believe you did that. And of course you die.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because we all love TPKs, right? So that makes sense.
I don't know. I TPK'd up a group when 3rd edition first came out. I think they were pissed at me.
That's because it was 3rd edition, though. It took them 9 hours to make those characters.
It did. It totally did.
Could you imagine a TPK and Burning Wheel?
Oh my
God,
goodness.
I think I'd
No.
riot. So, okay, yeah. I mean, to me, it's Apocalypse World, because in Apocalypse World, this idea of playing dangerously is so baked into every part of it. So you have, in some of the Apocalypse World, based games, and in Apocalypse World itself, you are frequently forced to play to your weaknesses in order to get experience points by highlighting a weak stat. In Dungeon World, you get experience points when you roll poorly. In games like Urban Shadows and Monster of the Week, you're gradually pushing your character toward retirement. The cooler you are, the closer you get to being done.
Okay.
There's just this, to me, there's always been this feeling in Apocalypse World games, or I should say powered by the Apocalypse games, that you're doing it right when you are pushing your character into danger, when you're doing things that are objectively bad for them, right?
Yeah.
In my own game, Brindlewood Bay, it's not so much enforced in the hard mechanics, but a lot of the game is about revealing how your character is an imperfect person. It's about tearing down the cute, cozy facade and showing that they're a real person with foibles and they've disappointed people and that kind of thing. So to me, that's all playing to lose to me in a way. I don't think it's as hard as in Trophy Dark, but I think it's in the same spirit.
Yeah.
So, Trophy Dark.
Yeah.
And this is something we talked about a little bit last week, but I think that playing to lose is a fundamental part of the experience. And I don't know how you get around it. I don't know how you do Trophy Dark in any other way, because so much of the game is about, like you said, watching the character break down, descend, fail, die, whatever, and the mechanics just force it in that direction. You get these conditions that are bad, but they lead to good role-playing opportunities, which leads to good story. You get to Ruin 5, and suddenly you have permission to betray the group.
Yeah.
And that leads to good story. The Ruin roll is constantly coming up and offering new opportunities for you to contemplate your character's demise and what that's going to look like on screen, right? How bad it's going to be. Every part of the game is saying, this is bad, your character is bad, they're going to fail, they're doomed. What does that look like? Let's make a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know how you get around it. And I think that's going to appeal to some people, and it's going to not appeal to other people. But I'm curious if I brought you around on it yet.
I'm intrigued. The incursions that I've been reading, and the moments, and the questions, and the idea of you're going to go during this game, but it's a matter of how. And I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting question. I definitely want to try it, without a doubt.
I'm trying to segue, I think, into this bigger topic, which is, how do we get our friend who's accustomed to D&D or more light and adventuresome type games, how do we get them into this style of play? I'm not saying you need to do that, but when I'm online and I see people having resistance to Trophy Dark, it's almost always because of this. They say, I brought it to my group, I tried to run the Flocculent Cathedral. They couldn't get into the idea of their characters are doomed.
Right.
They just couldn't get into it. And now I think that's an expectation setting problem, which maybe we'll talk about someday on the show. But I see that you have some notes about like getting people accustomed to this idea of like playing in a more dangerous way or playing in a way that puts their character in danger.
I think you've got to go like to a totally different well of fiction and literature and movies. You've got to go way more over into horror than anything else. And I don't know. I just think you've got to get away from the adventure, fantasy, and science fiction and get to something where you don't really know if your character's a good person or not. And you're kind of trying to figure that out in their last moments or their last day or, their last go.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So hypothetical.
Yeah.
We're playing a more standard tone adventure game.
Right.
And which I feel like every time we talk about D&D in this way, there's so many people rolling their eyes or whatever, but whatever. Yeah. We're playing a more like standard adventuresome lighter game. But a character dies.
Yeah.
They go to 0 hit points or whatever the fuck, at -10 back in my day. That's what and but they lose their character. How do you, as the GM, make that a good experience for the player, as opposed to you just lost your character? How do you make it a good experience? I think that's a skill.
It totally is, but I feel like our subculture, our hobby, avoids that so much that we really like does, literally like hide our die rolls, and we say things like,
I know, we fudge dice just to avoid this.
We do whatever we can to avoid it. And I think you hinted at this earlier when I said I TPK'd my 3E party, and you were like, oh my God, it took them 3 hours to make those characters. That's part of the problem, is that it's about labor, and it's about how long did it take them to make those characters. The example I've found where people really cheer about this is Dungeon Crawl Classics, where you roll up a bunch of 0-level folks and you die in these both fantastic and mundane ways, and like they just revel in it. And it's just like having a cool death. If you went to someone who has played a lot of Dungeon Crawl Classics, so you told them, I just played my first time, they'd be like, what was the coolest death? That might be the question.
Right, yeah.
So I think the first thing we have to be doing in order to make death be okay is not to play games where you have to really labor to make the characters.
I would be legitimately angry if my Burning Wheel character died.
Right.
Because I promise it took 5 hours to make that character. And Judd's over rolling his eyes. I know Judd's about to go into Burning Wheel defense. I have a funny story.
So when I first listened to the Gauntlet, I used to listen in my 2-hour commute to work, right? So I would listen, and there was one point where I was like, if this Jason guy doesn't stop shitting on Burning Wheel, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop listening to this damn thing. Every time he does it once a show. I swear to God, I'm waiting for it.
It used to be my greatest joy in life used to be to summon the Burning Wheel Defense Force. But you know what I'm saying, though, right? It's not a fast process.
Yes, I get you.
You have to admit that. And I say that as someone who's run a lot of Burning Wheel. I know. Like to put that proviso in there. But, like, I would be upset, right? So I think you're right. Like, it works in DCC in part because the characters are so fast to make, they feel disposable. But I guess my thinking is, like, do they have to feel disposable?
Right.
Can you have a character that is not disposable, but have that be a big moment? Like, if I did manage to kill a Burning Wheel character,
right,
I would probably have a whole session of, maybe not a whole session, but a good portion of a session memorializing that character in some way. I would try to make it a memorable experience. I had that happen in Dungeon World once, where we had a character who we'd been playing. I think he got to like level 8, which is really high in Dungeon World. He was a great character. We all loved this character, but he died. He lost, and he failed his last breath roll, and so that's it. It's the end of the line.
Yeah. And
so we just had like half an hour where we just like sort of memorialized the character, right? And the player said that meant a lot to me, because I hated losing the character, but I felt better afterwards. So I think that's one way you can do it. You can make it a more palatable experience, I suppose.
Having a wake is key, and getting the other players to think about how that character affected them, what they learned from that character, and how that character affected the world. All of that, I think, is a key point in making the loss mean something.
Right.
They don't have to have died holding the Balrog off. You can get stabbed in the neck by a goblin, fall off the horse and die, but still have led a really cool life and have people think about you and toast to you. So I don't think it doesn't have to be a huge dramatic thing. It can feel like an actual loss, which I think is really neat.
Yeah.
I've definitely missed fictional characters when they've died like that, and I think it could be really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I have anything else to add here. I mean, I think my main thing is by playing games like Trophy Dark and to some degree Trophy Gold or Cthulhu Dark, which Trophy Dark is based off of. There's another, by the way, like serious play to lose game, because that's another one where you cannot fight the monsters and the only point of the game is to get to the end so you go back. Right? But by playing games like this, so those games are built for this kind of play, and that's good. But I think by playing games like that, you can actually learn skills and play culture and techniques or ways of doing things that you can kind of bring into other games, right? You see how Trophy Dark does grim play-to-lose style play, or you play a game like Cthulhu Dark where the characters almost certainly are dead at the end, and it just gives you a different perspective, and I think you can carry that perspective into your other gaming. That's my main takeaway here, but do you have any other thoughts about this?
I just love when the dice, this is like an old Vincent Baker thing, but when the dice make us do something that if we were writing a story, we would have never done.
Right.
And I think that's a cool thing about this medium, is that I think it's really cool when the chosen one gets stabbed in the neck and bleeds to death. And then it's like, oh shit, what does that mean? I think it's the coolest part of our hobby, is that it lulls us into narrative paths that we're used to. And then because of the dice, it throws interrupts in.
Right.
That just come out of nowhere, where we're just like, oh shit, that's not how I would have done it. And it's like, good, now make sense of it.
I've never thought about it that way somehow, but you're right. That's exactly what it is. We have the basic trappings of typical narratives that because of the dice it gets interrupted. That's brilliant. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way of looking at the hobby in general, actually.
Thank you. You dragged it out of me. I was like, I don't think I have anything else to say. And then I just that came out.
We cannot leave any discussion without having a beautifully distilled takeaway, right? So
awesome.
Let's go to the next segment.
Woven on the Loom.
Okay, we are talking about magical artifacts lost to history. Judd has made one. I have made one. Mine's ridiculous. Judd's is really good.
Jason did his homework, and I did mine while the teacher was taking attendance. It was really sad.
I think yours turned out really, really good nonetheless. So what is your magical item?
Mine is called a Dead World's Sword. So I imagine it as some kind of sword made of material that no one can really identify. And it's from whatever was on this world before, whatever that means to your game. Was it before the previous cycle of Ragnarok, or was it that this was a space colony, it's science fantasy? I have no idea, but it's a Dead World sword, whatever that means to you. And when you plant that sword in the foundation stone of a building, whatever civilization claims the building, whoever collects taxes for this land, will begin to aggressively degrade until either their traditions and names are only whispered legends and songs, or the sword is removed.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. Huh. So it uses the power of its dead origin to drain things. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it pulls that civilization or whatever it is towards the doom of whatever it came before it, wherever it came from. Yeah.
Nice. So my artifact is called a Geno's Palette.
That's the most Jason Cordova name for a magic item.
Well, I didn't even come up with a Geno though. That's not even me. But a Geno's Palette. Okay, so here's the thing. Context.
Okay.
In our developing lore of the trophy world, one of the mythical figures is this painter called a Geno, and his paintings are frequently the object of people's pursuits. There are these rare paintings that some believe have magical powers. They're collected by people all over the world. That's a thing that kind of exists in the heretofore moving target trophy lore, but it's shaping up, and it's a thing. Now, a Geno's palette is a paint palette that belonged to the legendary Geno. Each color is connected to a different plane of existence. Using the palette is a risk roll with a dark die. So if you use it at all, risk roll with a dark die. And basically the way it works is whenever you paint with it, the dominant color you use in any artwork painted with the palette will have a subtle magical effect on those who view it. And this subtle magical effect is connected to the plane of existence that color is connected to. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I've got a bit to read here, so bear with me. Here are the colors.
Do you want to go back and forth? We'll do it like Passover style. You'll read one and I'll read one?
Yeah, that's great.
You go ahead and start.
Okay. Emerald, which is a faceted green, is connected to the happy hunting grounds. If this is your dominant color, the viewer has sudden insight related to hunting a particular quarry.
Nice. Sapphire, faceted blue, linked to Olympus. The viewer feels inspired to create.
Indigo, linked to Valhalla. The viewer feels inspired to destroy.
Nice. Jet, reflected black, limbo. The viewer becomes consumed by their own thoughts.
Magenta, connected to pandemonium. The viewer feels more comfortable in dark places.
Amethyst, linked to the abyss. The viewer is filled with a desire to solve problems via murder.
Olive, connected to Tartarus. The viewer becomes obsessed with the number 6.
Rust, linked to Hades. The viewer is overcome by gloomy disposition.
Russet, connected to Gehenna. The viewer becomes resistant to heat.
Ruby, linked to the 9 hells. The viewer feels sympathy for tyrants.
Flame, connected to Acheron. The viewer discards their sense of right and wrong in favor of whatever serves the most people.
Oh, man. Diamond, faceted white, Nirvana, instills the viewer with a sense of order.
Saffron, linked to Arcadia. The viewer has sudden insight related to agriculture.
Gold, linked to the 7 heavens, instills the viewer with a sense of justice.
Amber, linked to the Twin Paradises, instills the viewer with a strong need to maintain balance in all things.
Opal, linked to Elysium, the viewer gains insight about their ancestors.
Silver, linked to the astral plane, the viewer has strange dreams for a time.
Nice. White, linked to the ethereal plane, the viewer can see the dead for a time.
Now, there's one secondary power that this palette of Agino has. If you paint an image of a door with a single color on any surface, it creates a physical door to the respective plane of existence.
Nice.
That's my little magic item.
It's a nice one. I love the idea of giving a gift to an enemy and just changing them fundamentally.
Right, yeah. They have this. They hang the painting up and they're just affected by it, right? And yeah, I think
that's really cool.
Astute listeners who go back with D&D a long ways will recognize all my color connections to. They'll recognize that comes from the first edition Manual of the Planes and the color pools theory of traveling between the planes. So,
which is you told me before the mics went on, one of your favorite gaming books from back in the day.
It is. I love the 1E Manual of the Planes. It is still a great book. Like, it's really fun to pull off the shelf and read.
Nice.
Okay. So, listeners, we want you to give us your magical artifacts lost to time and space. You can submit them on the Gauntlet Forums post for this episode, and we'll take a look at them, and the one that we like best will win a $10 drive-thru gift card. We have the results of the mini contest that we ran earlier in the series run when we asked for monsters from the beginning of the world, and we've taken a look at those. We had 4 entries. They were all very, very good. But, Judd, which one did we choose?
We went with the Entropic Larva.
The Entropic Larva, written by Jim Crocker. Judd, read this one off, or start reading it, I guess.
Yeah, Entropic Larva, Endurance Special, see below. I'll just read off the 6 actions it often takes. Speaking gibberish in the words of long-dead civilizations. Rapidly aging matter it salivates upon. Dying, rotting away in moments, and slowly reconstituting itself over days or weeks. Coiling warmly and lovingly, but relentlessly around a victim. Oh, that's so gruesome.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Emitting a confusing cacophony of odors from talcum to incense to flowers to grave rot. That's really nice. That's really good. Until I read it out loud. I liked it, but now I really liked it when I read it out loud. Slowly undulating across even the most inhospitable surfaces and improbable angles like an inchworm.
Its defenses are one with entropy. The first time the entropic larva is encountered, it is the size of a short, fat garden snake with a lamprey-like mouth and slimy skin the color of pond scum. Its endurance is 1. When destroyed, that's in quotes, it will imprint upon the character who killed it and thereafter seek out that character to ensure its inevitable decay and return to the stuff of which the world was made. Each subsequent time it is encountered, increase its endurance by 1 and add a detail that reflects its increased size, such as appearance, movement, etc. If a different player character then destroys the larva, it will imprint on that player character as well, and so on. It can never be permanently destroyed, only beat back for a time. If the PCs can find a way to permanently alter their spirits in a manner that renders it unrecognizable to the larva, it will cease its relentless pursuit and gradually decay back to its original form as it searches for a new victim. That's great. Love that. What's its other? It has another defense here, too.
Oh, yeah. Omega Kiss. If the larva fastens its orifice upon the skin of a PC, it will consume their future.
Jesus.
Instead of taking ruin from a failed combat roll against the larva, a PC may instead elect to add 1 burden permanently to reflect the years they have lost that could have been spent pursuing their drive.
Its weakness, thank goodness it has some, if a PC allows the creature to feed upon them without resisting, in which case you treat as an automatic weak point roll, but the player character's white die does not count towards the combat roll, the distracted larva will be vulnerable to the blades of the treasure hunter's companions. I like this a lot. This is a great monster.
Yeah.
It's super cool. It's very fun. It's just fun. It's neat.
Yeah, it's a cool one. I think the idea that it would just keep coming until the players figure it out, or find that tome that says how to deal with the Omega Kiss is really a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of story here, which is good.
Yeah.
So congrats, Jim, and we're going to move on to the end of the show, which is right now. Listeners, The Sixth Ring is a production of The Gauntlet. You can find The Gauntlet on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. We have a website, gauntlet-rpg.com. If you'd like to support this show and many other shows that we produce, you can do so at Patreon. Go to patreon.com/gauntlet and do that. Judd, anything you want to plug this week?
Yeah, I've got a couple of little things. I've got a YouTube channel. If you go to my Twitter, it's in the links. And I've got some fun things going on there where I'm doing some play-by-post by video, which is kind of weird. I don't know if anyone would enjoy watching that, but I don't know. It's a thing. We're doing it, and it's super fun. So I don't know if I care that anyone else wants to watch it. But anyway, it's there. And if you want to, you can. And my podcast, Daydreaming About Dragons, I'm also putting them all up as YouTube videos. So
you have not yet plugged your blog either. Your blog, Githyanki Diaspora, is so good.
Oh, thank you.
I read everything you ever put up there. So love Githyanki Diaspora.
Thank you.
We'll link to that in the show notes as well. Lots of show notes this week. Let's see who among us does it, whether it's you, me, Rich, or Lowell. Someone. Speaking of Rich, that's our wonderful producer. Thank you, Rich. And listeners, thank you. Take care. Hi listeners, I wanted to let you know that Hearts of Wulin is now available to pre-order. Hearts of Wulin is a tabletop role-playing game of wuxia melodrama, powered by the apocalypse. In Hearts of Wulin, players take the role of skilled martial artists in a world of rival clans, conspiracies, and obligations. The game emulates films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Chinese wuxia TV series like The Smiling Proud Wanderer and Fox Volant of the Snowy Mountain, and Chinese martial arts novels from the second half of the 20th century. In these tales, romance is as dangerous as a blade. Everyone has ties to factions, loves they can't quite express, and secrets which will shake them to their core. As in the source material, stories in Hearts of Wulin are driven by the characters' duties, romantic desires, and entanglements with other characters. You can pre-order the hardcover edition of Hearts of Wulin by following the link in the show notes. And as always, thanks so much for your support.